Hello everyone, welcome. I hope you're all well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now I've released a new Christmas selection of stamps and stencils. I've never had sort of a selection of designs all together for Christmas, so it's lovely to have them. Now I've done them earlier in the year, mainly because me as an individual, I don't do last minute Christmas. I sort of get everything prepared, and then in December I enjoy the whole month of just enjoying the lights, the festivities, and just relaxing, so then I haven't got too much pressure. So that's why I've released them early on. They're going to be a constant product, as in they will remain in my product library. So I thought we would create a card with one of the Christmas designs that I've released. I've got 5 A7 stamps and 2 snippet stencils. So I haven't decided what I'm going to use there yet, but we'll decide that later. The only thing I have decided is that I'm a little bit addicted to the bubble technique. So I thought, let's incorporate the bubble technique into a Christmas card. So I've got my stamping platform, which you can see is rarely used. It's rarely used because I use acrylic blocks. I'm an old-fashioned stamper. I use acrylic blocks because I've used them for about 28-30 years, but I've got my stamping platform because it's great for certain techniques. So I've got my stamping platform, I've got some copier paper, I've got a little container for my bubbles, which you've seen me do in a couple of videos now. There's a video called Bubble Technique and a video called Bubble Technique Part 2 on my YouTube channel. One's about 6 or 7 days ago and one is a couple of days ago. So I thought we'd incorporate the bubble technique in a Christmas design. So what I'm going to do is we'll take our dishwasher liquid, whatever dishwasher liquid you've got. So I'm just going to add some dishwasher liquid. We'll try and keep mess to a minimum, she says. We'll add a little bit of water. You don't need too much water, but we will add a little bit of water. It's like making a little mixture of something, isn't it? Now, I've got 2 greys. I've got Elephant and Mineral Dina Wakley acrylic paints. So I'm going to add, as you can see, these are well used. So I'm going to add a bit of that one. So that was Elephant. And I'm going to add a little bit of Mineral. Can you see this? No, you can't see, Tracy. Lift it up, Tracy. Can you see the difference with the 2 colours? So then I'm going to do my little bit of mixing. So it's quite enjoyable mixing up your concoction. I'm just mixing up some of them sort of lumps. Okay. I feel like I'm doing some kind of chemistry lesson. It makes me laugh. So I'm going to look at that. Look at this for kitchen roll. This is just a kitchen roll that is just awful. Let's just chuck that over there. So I like to place a little bit of kitchen roll down so we don't get in too much of a mess. Don't add too much water. I've just flicked that all over my card. That doesn't matter, just adds to the background. So I want a little spatula or something if I want to pick bubbles up. And then my favourite bit of blowing bubbles. Oh, I'm just like a child. And the fan is blowing, so my hair's blowing all over my face, but I need the fan. So get quite a few bubbles, and as we've done before, you can just place them down onto your card. Now obviously we've got grey paint, so it's going to be more subtle, but we can easily add more paint. Now make sure you get into that mixture. You can also pick the bubbles up. not like that, obviously, she says. Hang on. Get some nice big bubbles that you can just add to your card like that. So you've got some nice big bubbles. It works nicely with some nice big bubbles. So I'm going to add a little bit more elephant. I don't want it too dark. At the end of the day, this is a Christmas card, so I still want it to have, you know, a classy feel. So let's just, and if you mix it up well, that creates a few bubbles as well. And you don't need much water. If you just make sure you're in that mixture, it works really well. It just works beautifully. Can you see that I've got those lovely bubbles? You can also, like we've done in our previous videos, you can pick these bubbles up like so, and you can add them to your card, just so that you get a little bit more concentration of the colour. But obviously we don't want it too overpowering with it being our Christmas cards. We want it to look lovely, but we don't want it to be too overpowering. Just dry the side of there. And if you use just a little bit of water, it's not too messy at all. Yay, look at them bubbles. Just wonderful. So I'm just, whilst I'm here, I'm going to create some more backgrounds just whilst we're here. Look how gentle I'm blowing those bubbles. I'm just picking them up. Don't tip your liquid up. So let's just pick up some of the, you can pick up some of the little mixture as well, just so you can create different backgrounds. But look how little water I've got. Oh, look at that big bubble. So just add your bubbles. Does make me laugh when they go like that. So you're just playing with a whole lighter colour. So you just play around. I'm running out of a little bit of liquid. Let me show you the one that's sort of drying on one side, just so you can see we've got our lovely bubbles on there. I'm just going to add a little touch more water, just a little bit more. It's all an experimentation, and you have to remember that. Let's add a little bit of the lighter colour. Plus it's like being a child again. Don't blow too hard. Oh, look at them bubbles. Just love them. So place that on one side. I'm just going to be saying that all the time. Place that on one side. So just one final bit. Oh, I do like this. It's like going back to my childhood. Again, I'll just pick up some of those bubbles. Not much liquid, look, just the bubbles. So each background looks a little bit different if I add some littler bubbles onto this one. I don't throw this away, I do this after the video as well. Oh, look at them bubbles. Let's go round and get them from the back bottle. Lift them up there. Oh, right. So I'm having too much fun. So let's wipe this. So because I'm keeping them, I'm just going to wipe around my container just so I can place it somewhere. Oops, without knocking the camera, Tracy. So I'll literally move that somewhere just out of the way, just so that we can, when the camera's finished, I can carry on playing. So I've just spent 11 minutes just playing with the bubbles just to get my background. Okay, so let's grab our heat tool. So funny, I couldn't get the plug out then because my hands were all slippy. So I couldn't get my hand out. Right, so we've got this background, just so you can see it's still drying. We've got this background. Oh, I just love them. They're so addictive. So place them on one side. And then the one that's been drying the longest, which I can't pick up, we've got here. Now, I would really recommend that you let it dry naturally. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to dry it. But I'd recommend letting it dry naturally, because this eventually, these little ones pop. And you can see it there, I think every now and then it just, these little ones then start to pop. And you get little, can you see? Little dots. But obviously when I dry it with the heat tool, I sort of force them to pop. But obviously I want to show you how to make a card. I don't want to just sit here and, you know, wait for it to dry naturally. Oh, hang on a minute, we just need to clean this so it's out of the way. That bit of mess there. There we go. And I'm just going to hold this a little bit higher up. I can see the bubbles now popping, because obviously there's a little bit of heat being applied. So they're now popping. But if you let that dry naturally, you'll get more smaller little bubbles, and it's great fun. Actually, some of them there have stayed, which is lovely. So just allow that to dry naturally, because you'll get more of those smaller bubbles, which really add to the background. And I have to say, I think the paint works the best. It gives the best results. It's less messy than re-inkers. You can use brush-os, you can use your paints, you can sprinkle in there, you can spray in there, but I do think the paints work rather nicely. And luckily I've still got some little bubbles even with drying the card. There we go. So that's quite nice. So let's grab, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of copy paper so that I'm not drying for too long. There we go. Just to blot up a little bit of the excess paint. But just so you can see, I've still got the little, can you see the little bubbles here? I've still got those little bubbles, which is just wonderful. absolutely glorious background, and if you give that time to dry naturally, it works beautifully. Hopefully, have I got some small ones on the other one? Yes, hopefully with the other one I'll be able to show you, because it should be drying naturally. But isn't that just a simple background, beautiful and easy to create? So I'm just going to use the back of the copy of paper and just blot just where those lumpy bits are, because there's a little bit of paint on there, just so that you can see. But it's interesting how much paint actually goes on to the card. Right, so I'm going to take my stamping platform, which you can see is not used much, and then I'm going to use, I think, one of the baubles. So we've got two baubles. We've got the decorations one, TE18, and the TE22. So I'll just use the first one I come to, which is TE22. I haven't used these platforms for such a long time. So let's just move my magnets down here so I can see what I'm doing. Now, so where do I want this bauble? I want one there. So let's place the magnets on. Now, the stamps, I mean, I've used mine for a bit, but when you first get them, they are quite sticky. That's due to the manufacturing process, but once you've used them a little while, that soon disappears. So it's a weekend, so I'm not in a rush just to rush everything. So bear with me, because I'm just nearly pulling my heat tool off. As you well know, I do that quite frequently. So what I'm going to do now is grab some colours. So we're going to use Twisted Citron. And I've got a couple of Twisted Citrons. One's more juicy than the other. And then we'll also, do we want a darker colour? Do you like how Tracy can't make her mind up? A little bit of, no, I just want the green, I think. So let's just grab the green. And if you're unsure what you're going to get, it's best to sort of experiment. I'm not, I'm just going for it. So I'm going to take my Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink. So just going to apply the ink, and because I'm using the stamping platform, I don't have to worry if everything isn't perfect straight away. And obviously that's the advantage of stamping platforms. And I know I haven't got loads of ink on there at the moment. Can you see? So we'll just drop the lid on there. Luckily that was just the lid. And we're using the Distress Oxide ink because I want to spritz a little bit. And the reason I've used the paints is that if I spritz, the paint won't move. Where are we? Really, what I should have done before I spritzed is put some kitchen roll on here, but there you go. There we go. So we'll just spritz that, because we know that the oxides react with the spritzing. So again, we're just going to add more colour. and just apply a little bit more colour, and you can see it's getting darker and darker. So I'm just going to let that react a little bit, and then I think I am going to get a little bit of a darker colour. Do I fancy? So we'll just have a little bit of crushed olive. There we go. And I can easily wipe my stamping platform afterwards. And what's happening is the water is reacting with the oxide and it's bleeding a little bit, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So I've now stamped. Let's lift this up because it's always easier for you to see. You'll see it's starting to bleed. So let's spritz again with some water. There we go. So now we've spritzed quite a lot with water. And what I would normally do is I would let that react a little bit, and I'd sort of go away and maybe make a cup of tea or just faff around in my craft room, and then I'd come back. But I'm not doing that, obviously, or else the video would be 4 hours long. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our heat tool on, and then we're just going to hold it from a distance and just heat that a little bit. So just heat that just a little bit. So now I've got the colour nicely coming out of the bauble, and obviously if I apply a little bit of heat, that will stop that moving. But we've now got that lovely colour seeping through, and can you see the bubbles that we created in the background showing through the bauble? Lovely, lovely, lovely. So we'll go back now, and I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the twisted citron. I seem to have a problem with remembering names of things. Now don't move your bauble until you know you're happy with what it looks like. I'm then going to take the crushed olive. Do you like I have to lift the lid up to remember the colour? That's because it's the weekend and my brain cells aren't working. I mean, I know most of you probably say they're not working most of the time, but honestly, they're not working. And because my platform is nice and clean, I'm going to try and keep it nice and clean. So then the crushed olive, and of course, because I've used a bit of moisture, I can't pick up. So then we can place this down. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Look, absolutely gorgeous. So what you've got is you've got a bit of bleed on the outside. You've got the bubbles you can actually see through, and because I've spritzed the water, it dilutes the colour, and you can see the bubbles through with the paint. And then you've got a little bit of definition with the crushed olive. And Tracy pauses because she can't remember the name. Crushed olive, because I don't use it that much, but I couldn't remember the name. Poor soul I am. Right. So what I'm going to do now is just clean that bauble a little bit. I always clean anyway if I'm using oxides, to be fair. So then where do I want the next bauble? So we'll have that bauble just there, and then I can just take my platform, just pick that up, and then we can start the process again. And obviously when I spritz with water, I'm going to affect that a little bit as well. So we'll just take our twisted citron. And if you ever hear Tracy stall, it's because she can't remember the name of the ink pads, because her brain cells aren't working. So we'll just add that twisted citron. And you can see we've got a darker layer of paint there that you remember there was darker layers of paint. So then we'll just spritz with water. So I just started sort of with a light bit, and I can see this already moving, which is wonderful. So then we're going to add, just like we did before, another layer of that twisted citron. And look how much that one has reacted at the bottom. But it's great because we can go back in with our stamping platform and we can add that colour again. And what that does is just re-adds the definition. So if I want a bit of bleed there, I can add more water. Bit of bleed there, I can add more water. And just give that a little bit of time to do the reacting with the water. Just so that you can see that. And I can even tilt it slightly so it moves, just so you can see the reaction. I don't drown the card, but I just give it a little spritz. Isn't that bauble wonderful with the bubbles showing through? Just wonderful. And experiment with lots of different colours. It's just great fun. So again, now I can add a little bit of the crushed olive. And you can make the baubles look different by sort of having some of your lines from your ink pad on there. I mean, I could probably do this without a stamping platform, but obviously you've got more chance of missing it slightly. But that also adds to the design. So let's just grab a little bit of kitchen roll, because we don't want to completely soak my stamping platform. You can tell it's new because I don't want to completely soak it. So again, I'm getting a beautiful blend. So as before, let's move these out of the way. We'll just give that a little bit of a dry, because I'm using Pink Frog smooth card, and the Pink Frog card is 300 GSM and it's 4 inches by 6 inches. But you can use any size card that you prefer. And I'm holding it from a distance, just so that we heat that gently. And it's continued to move. I've even got some coming down here, which is just lovely. But by heating it a little bit, we just don't break down the card too much. And I just need to remember not to put that where the bubbles are. And I can just see a lovely hair right in the middle. Well, of course it's right in the middle. Wherever you put it, of course it would look... Oh, now I'm forgetting I've got metal scissors. We'll get that afterwards. I've got a little hair. There we go. So again, I'm going to add a little bit of the twisted citron to add back in some of that brightness from the twisted citron. Just beautiful. Let's put the lid on that, and then we'll add some of the crushed olive that just won't go in. So I'm putting some on this edge here because it's a little bit lighter there. So just adding a little bit more. And it's great because I can just add whatever I wish. So I've got a little bit more definition there. And you can go in again, if you wish, and just add a little bit more definition to certain areas on the bauble. So you can just go to certain areas, and if I just lift this up, you can see it's got a little bit more definition. Just beautiful. So once you're happy, you can then either spritz with water once again. So if I spritz with water once again, just mop up here. So just spritzed one last time. And I like to spritz, that will add a little bit of bleaching, but also just so that that neat oxide isn't just sitting on the surface. I just like to give it a little bit of a spritz, and then we'll just give that a waft dry. You see, in my bubble background adds to the baubles, but it's not too overpowering. So what I like to do then is just clean my bauble a little bit, only because it's got that oxide on. Now, to give it a little bit more definition, as if it had got more of an edge, I'm going to take my hickory smoke. No, I'm not, because I didn't do it for that one, did I? Lined it up. No, we'll leave that. I was going to add hickory smoke, but I'll do it with my Inktense pencil because I've already moved that bauble. So let's take this out, bring this in. Now what I want to do is just see if I want a bauble inside. Yes, I do. So this is where your stamping platform comes in, because you can add it exactly where you want, especially now I've added all the moisture. But look how many magnets I've got to hold that card down. Now I can still feel quite a bit of moisture in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the crushed olive, and this is why I like taking my time, because I have fun. And I like Christmas cards to not be stressful and rushing. I like to have them made, but enjoy making them as well. So that's the crushed olive, just so you can see. And I'm not going to touch that with water. Just going to leave that as it is. But look at those bubbles still visible through the bauble. Just wonderful. Now we're going to add a little bit of the grey to this one. So a little bit of hickory smoke, because this one is inside the other bauble, and of course I could do that with pencils if I wished, no problem at all. But I'm going to see what it looks like with the hickory smoke. Just beautiful. It just gives it the subtle shading I am looking for. And I'm getting a little bit on my stamping platform because I'm trying to use little bits of the ink pad and not use the whole ink pad. So don't worry too much if you get a little bit on your stamping platform. It's a bit of a pain because my hands are wet. So I'm just going to add, excuse me, a little bit more definition. So look at the definition now. Just wonderful. I can see I want a little bit more definition down here, so that is there. So I can go in just with my stamping platform, and I can just add a little bit more definition there. Just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So now I can move that bauble out, and then we can add the bauble here. And then just bring this in. Does help if you're not a drip and you actually put it the right way so that the stickiness is actually picked up with the stamping platform. Dear me, I haven't had enough sleep, that's my problem. Look, it works then. Can't you tell I haven't used a stamping platform for a while? Right, so I'm now going to use my crushed olive. Delightful colour. So we'll add the crushed olive. There we go. And now I can add my definition with the hickory smoke. There we go. And again, it doesn't matter if I don't get it quite right, because I've got that stamping platform. So I've got a lot more grey underneath there, so I need a little bit more of that grey just for some definition. And I can keep going back as many times as I wish. Yes, it's perfect that side, so let's add a little bit. More. There we go, just wonderful. So I've got my bauble within a bauble from TE22. Just let me lift this up just so that you can see that. You've got a lovely bauble within a bauble on a bubble background. Now that's a mouthful, but I just absolutely love that. And I don't feel pressurized by it because I'm not leaving it till the last minute. So I feel like I can enjoy what I'm doing. And I love the sort of water effect around the outside. It just adds to it, but it's still classy. So it's just lovely, absolutely lovely. I love it. Now I'm going to take, so on the stamp set here, we've got the number 25. So I'm going to use the 25, and I may as well use it on my stamping platform. So see, I nearly put it the wrong way again. So I can faff a little bit about where I'm going to put it. There we go. And then I'm going to use my Morning Mist, Versifying Clair. So let's use the Morning Mist. These are all, I've got all these in my shop on my website. So we can just, and again, I don't have to worry if I don't get it quite right. I can press really lightly, or I can press firmer, and really lightly is plenty. So again, because I don't want a double impression, I'm just going to clean that, because I'm going to lay it down on here. So then I'm going to add this here. So you can see why I cleaned that, just so that I don't get a double impression on there. So then take the Morning Mist. I have to look at my ink pads because I know what I'm like. I often pick up the wrong one. So I can just press quite lightly, and then I've got my 25 on the baubles, like so. And it's a completely flat card. So then I'm going to add the word peace from the same stamp set. I'm going to add this here. So it's up to you if you want to add little dimensional pieces or not. It's entirely up to you. So I want this to be uppermost, so I'm going to use my Nocturne ink. You don't need too much ink. These are fine sentiments, and again, you don't need too much pressure, because then you don't get a double squashed impression. Now I'm going to press this onto here, so I'm just cleaning the stamp again, so I don't leave a mark on there when I place the stamp down. I'm going to bring this down a bit. I'm going to add, don't need to bring that down a bit, but you can see how much I am faffing, but I can take my time and not worry about it too much, not worry about rushing or anything. I'll just take that piece stamp, and you can see why sometimes I need plenty of time to create a project, just because I like to enjoy the process. So you've got that word piece on there, just wonderful. Right, before I take it out, I'm just deciding whether I've done everything I need to do before, and I think I have, because now it's time to do a little bit of work on there. Let's bring out the stamp platform. Look at that. It's not exactly clean, is it? I mean, in fact, that was pretty awful. That was not clean at all. It is now. Let's move that out the way. And you can see there's still moisture in that card, just so you can see that, but it's still drying. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to add a little touch of white just onto the bauble. So we're going to do that with our background stamp, which is just, I've had to order some more of these in, TE11 background elements, because it's just, you've loved it as much as I'm loving it. There we go. So I'm going to add some white here. Now, the thing we have to remember is there's quite a bit of moisture in there. I can feel it on the baubles. And of course, that's where I'm going to add the embossing. So I'm just going to add a little bit of anti-static bag. I can easily blow that off and dust that off afterwards. Then the fan needs to go up a level because Tracy's worn. Right, let's grab our Versamark. So we'll take our Versamark ink. Just make sure that you can see everything. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this stamping just to the bauble, and I like to just press with one finger just so I don't add too much. Let's grab a clean piece of copy paper because I can see that's still wet on there, and let's now, what did I just do? The fan. I put the fan on faster, and you know what's going to happen. It's just going to blow that embossing powder all over the place, and we don't want that. So let's just... You won't be able to see it in camera, but I will lift that up once we've embossed. But I'm just sprinkling the embossing powder just so I can see where we're going. So, let's take a little bit here. There's a pigeon just flown past my window. Wondered what it was. Little bit of, oh, that's just beautiful. That's what I love about this background stamp. It's just enough. It's never too much. It just works beautifully. And what I have to try and remember to do is remove my Versamark so I don't dry it out. You don't want to dry that out with the heat tool. No idea where I've put the acetate to that. So we'll just heat our heat tool up. Just what you want on a lovely warm day is your heat tool on. And we'll just heat the embossing. And I'm just holding it up because sometimes in a bright light I can't see it actually turn. So I just hold it up hoping that I can actually see something without burning my hands. She said, there we go. And once that's all turned, then hold your card in a different position because you want to go down to the other embossing. And the reason it's also taking a little bit longer is you've got that moisture on there. So you have to remember that. And whilst it's still warm, it's red hot, just bend that card a little bit. There we go. But you've got some beautiful embossing on there that just really sort of lifts that a little bit, but you can still see those bubbles, which I just love. Absolutely love that. And if you want to, oh, where's it gone? You can then do the rest of your work. If you're finding that your card is buckled a little bit and you can't, sometimes if my card buckles a little bit, I find that, oh, well done Tracy, you're not supposed to do that. I find that it's sometimes difficult to stamp on it because you've got this lift. So if you just use your magnets, it'll just keep that flat for you so that you can work on there a little bit better. So just wonderful. So now I just want to add a little bit more definition. So I'm going to take my water brush. So I'm going to add some water up here. Actually, we could add, I've just had another idea. No, we'll use this because it means I've got to use my cupboards, move me trays, and trust me, you don't want to move anything in this room because it's just, I've got stuff everywhere with a new release. So I've got some water here and I've got my twisted citron just there. Now, I don't want to water too much, just lets me make sure that that's not got any grey in it. So I'm going to pick up some of the twisted citron and I'm just going to add a little bit more definition with the twisted citron. So just like you would with your pencils and you're adding a little bit more definition to this sort of side here, as if it's lighter there and a little bit darker here. So, but I don't want to add too much because I don't want to obliterate the bubbles. I want those bubbles to still be visible. So by adding the neat colour from the Twisted Citron, what that means is I'm just getting a little bit more oomph, a little bit more definition, a little bit more brightness to that. And you don't need much, but it makes a huge difference. Trust me, in real life, it makes a huge difference. We are going to add touches of white, but just not yet. So I'm going to take my Inktense pencil. That one is in the way. Let's move you up there and move you there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my Inktense pencil. Now you've just seen me use green, so we don't want to add the green. So let's just clean our brush. There we go. And then we're just going to touch that very slightly, because don't forget you've got oxide inks on there. So you don't want it to react too much. You just want to add a little bit of shading and carry that on up, further up into the bauble. So just add a little bit more shading. I'm then going to grab my white pen. Let me just see if that's working. I always say that and then I use white card and not black. So what I'm going to do is, now when you're using your white pens, it really is important that you let things dry. You're not going to get those white areas in there unless you allow, like it's quite wet here, and I'm trying to add white gel pen to a wet surface. It's not going to work if you don't sort of give that time to dry. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of definition here and on this bauble here. And again, you don't want too much moisture because you want to react the Inktense pencil, but you don't want to react the oxide too much. So you're just giving a little bit of definition just to your little baubles. So I can take these out again by just putting it in that stamping platform. It just flattened it out a little bit for me, so it was a little bit easier to just do some of those fine details, because sometimes your card can stick up a little bit, so it just helps for those fine details. I'm then going to use I'm not going to use the micron pen yet until, where's the other stamp? There it is. I'm then going to take the Holly and Berries TE21. Leave the plastic in there, Tracy, or else you'll be looking for that for a week. So I'm going to take the Holly. I can just add that to my A7 acrylic block. And then I want some permanent stamping, so I'm going to take Verdant. Take a little bit of that Verdant. And then I'm going to add touches of Shady Lane. Don't think about it too much, just add it quite randomly. And then I'm going to add a little sprig of that there with my permanent stamping. Maybe a little bit of Second Generation, just to give a little bit more depth. And you don't need to do too much, so I'll just leave it at that. So there's just a little sprig there, but we can still see our bubble background. So I think that's important. So we're not going to add too much. What sentiments have I got now? Yes, I'll do that in a second. Right, so now I need my micron pen, a biro, whatever you wish, and just add your little bit of thread just to the bauble, just so that it's hanging from something. Just, yes, that's still drying. It's still a lot of moisture in there, and you have to be aware of this. Now I have stamped onto white card, so you don't really need to add the white, apart from where maybe it touches the grey, because I've put those white areas in there for you. But obviously if we go on to the grey, then it shows as grey. So we just want to highlight those again. Just wonderful, just beautiful. Just works so nicely. I just love that. So it's then contemplating, yes, I want my white splatters, so let's add our white splatters. Oh, I'm just going to add a little touch. Can you see I've got a different colour on there? So really I should rub that off. Just colour that off. There we go, it's now clean. And I'm just going to add a little bit of white. Now this is mainly for the person receiving the card, just so they can see there's light and depth to the design, just so they can see that. I will lift this up just so that you can see, because there's some touches that are subtle, and I want to explain those to you as to why we're having those subtle, because I think it's so important to have them subtle. I've then got an Inktense, no I haven't, I've got a Prismacolor pencil called Lime Peel, PC1005, and then I can just add a little bit more definition just to my bauble. Just slightly, little bit of definition. Please don't press too hard, because at the end of the day you've got that moisture in the card, so don't press too hard. Also you need to remember to add your little bit of sort of string here, as if it's dangling from this bauble as well. And then we need to add the white touches here, just so that those finishing touches are really, really important. Okay. So when I stamped the 25, I knew that I was going to be adding embossing, because I want to be the 20, is it like subliminal? I want the 25 to be there, but not in your face. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That isn't just, just so that it's there, but it's not too much. Just lovely, but you can still see everything. The bubbles, the colour, the definition. It just works beautifully. So we're going to add some splatters, but you're not going to add too much. You're just going to add touches of that splatter. Just little touches. There we go. So you're just going to add little touches of that. and then we can add wording, a sentiment afterwards. Now, for me personally, I don't like adding a black mat to my Christmas cards. I like it to sort of be quite bright and white and fresh for Christmas cards, so I don't want to add a black mat. But let me just see my Posca pens. I'm just going to check my Posca pens. I don't know whether I've got a very pale green. I don't think I have. Not the right colour, sort of limey. I'm quite surprised I haven't got a limey one because I tend to use those colours. Right, I haven't got that. Never mind. What we will do is we'll just faff a bit more because I can't close the zip. I like having a good faff. Let's move that out of the way. I was going to use like a limey pen just to add that limey colour around the edges. So instead, I'll just use my VersaFine Clair. And I'm just going to add that around the edges. Like so. Just to add that around the edges. And I'm just going to take my kitchen roll, because that's around the edges, and just sort of dab, just so that we take the excess colour from that VersaFine Clair, because you know they stay wetter longer, before I add that to my white card. So I'm just going to clean my hands because we're adding it to a white card, and we'll just grab a piece of copier paper, and then we're going to add this to a 5 by 7 inch card blank. Now, if you were using double-sided tape, the double-sided tape would grab, and it's an instant grab. The only reason I don't use double-sided tape is I never ever get my card straight and in the right place the first time. I know people sort of place it down and then pull the double-sided tape. Trust me, I still move it. So I like to use a wet glue. It's all down to preferences. I also like a wet glue. It allows me to move my card should I need to move it. And it soon grabs, especially the tonic one, soon grabs hold of that card. There we go. So we've got our beautifully flat card. Just hold that down there. Make sure you press in the middle as well, because I've added adhesive in the middle. And there's a reason for that, because when you've added moisture, you want to add the adhesive in the middle. But just so that you can see that. We're then going to add a little sentiment. You can just leave it like that if you wish. Oh, do you know, sorry about that. The wire to the phone is quite close to my hand, so I tend to touch it quite frequently in all my excitement. So let's grab a scrap of white card. As you can see, it's not a clean white card. Let me just clean that. And I'm trying to remember not to use something wet on the top of my glue, else it just adds moisture to it and that'll clog it. So I've got with warmest wishes from the holly and the berry stamp set. You don't have to press hard, and I'm using Nocturne ink. Let's see if I can grab my scissors without knocking the phone. Again, you could cut this up if you wished. If you didn't want it full length, you could cut each word up individually just to give it a different look. I'm going to make that quite fine so the sentiment isn't overpowering. Let's move that out of the way. And we can work on this nice piece of clean white card. I'm then going to add with warmest wishes to my card. And I've added a little bit too much adhesive there, so we'll just press that on there. And we'll just add with warmest wishes. And what I like about that is it's not too much of a bulky sentiment, so it works quite nicely with the fresh, clean look. Again, I was going to wipe it with a wet wipe, don't do that. And then I'm just going to add a little touch of shading, and obviously you would wait until it's dry. I never do. Let's see if there's enough moisture just in the pen, just as it is. No, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. I always sneeze on a video. That's better. Just add a little bit of shading just there. And then if I bring out my, do you know, I pull out the background stamps and I'm like, where did I put them? Where did I put the background stamps? You see, if you didn't have so much stuff on your desk, it's not a problem. Oh, it's because I put it where the copier paper is, and I put the copier paper on the top. So if I take TE12, it comes into its own. You've got the little, I can use the little bird to add. So I'm going to take the little bird, like so, just off that one. And I can add my little bird wherever I wish. And I'm going to take black ink for my little bird, and just make sure that your bird is stuck on your acrylic block. Ask me why. So just make sure it's not going to fall off. And you only have to ask me once why. So just give that a little bit of time just to absorb onto that card. Just wonderful. And really, I should give that a few moments to sort of rest before I try and add any white touches. Or you can leave it black. On some of my cards, I've just left it like that. Just add a little bit of white. And that is your card, and apart from the sentiment, it is one layer. So I hope you've enjoyed that demonstration. I'm loving making these, so I hope you enjoyed that. I can't wait to see your interpretation. Let me show you the other backgrounds, and look how they're still drying, but can you see? It's a bit like a stocking, isn't it? But you can see the smaller bubbles. They really take if you let them dry naturally. That one's still drying, but just fantastic, fantastic backgrounds. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.